Hi, thank you for having me. As Jill said, I'm Emily Tortorici. I am a disability resource coordinator for round 4 of the Disability Employment Initiative. When I first, I'm also actually a credentialed work incentive practitioner, so I'm able to advise individuals on how work impacts their benefits. My background before I started doing this was more geared towards, I work for a community action agency, so I worked for the Head Start program as a family worker, and I kind of, when I fell into this, I didn't really know much about Social Security disability benefits, as many people don't, and what I started to find is that there's really a lack of knowledge and benefits and how work impacts those benefits, and it really kind of, people, they lose their choice, and they lose their voice and what their future looks like as far as work. So hence my title for this presentation: you offer your client choices by providing incentives. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and a little bit about what we're going to do today. This is our agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about benefits advisement. I'll do an overview of the different benefits and how you can kind of identify, SSD from SSI. I'll go through a bunch of work incentives, the Ticket to Work program. I'd like to touch on a case study that I actually stole from a colleague that was pretty good. I will provide you with additional resources, and hoping that we can leave a good amount of time for questions and comments. So I'm going to try to kind of go through the material quickly, and if you think I'm going too fast, go ahead and just tell them to slow me down, and I'll slow down. But I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions. And periodically I'll stop, because this is, like I said, a lot of information and it's very complex. So I'll stop periodically to see if anybody has any questions thus far. So, well, let's talk about the early years. And this being not too long ago, but the early years of benefits, and when people with benefits were wanting to go to work, and how the attitude was then, and still really is. But get the most out of those benefits. Make sure that the beneficiary is getting their benefits, they're keeping those benefits, and all the other benefits that services and benefits that come with those. Protect the beneficiary. It's been really important to have the mindset to protect the beneficiary from losing their benefits, so that you don't want to do anything to impact those benefits in a negative way. And how we do that is by managing those benefits and kind of keeping people at that 20 hours a week, or at minimum wage, or 15 to 20 hours, and keeping their benefits, their work down real low, so that we can manage those benefits. And also, I think most importantly, what has happened is there really is no guidance, no training for service providers. Many of us have provide services for people with disabilities and beneficiaries that may not directly deal with employment, but when you're case managing, you need to know everything about that person. You need to be able to help them with everything. So I think that there has been a real lack of training for providers on how work impacts someone's benefits. So then we can get into how change begins to happen, and that's what's happening now. And part of that is through the Disability Employment Initiative. I am round 4, so now we're in, I think, getting ready to, I think they put an RFP out for round 7. So this initiative is growing, and it's raised some eyebrows and ears to getting people with disabilities and beneficiaries back to work, or to work for the first time. And in New York State, actually, round 1, New York State was the first state of DRCs to have their DRCs credentialed in benefits advisement, and that's growing as well all over the country. Oh, we have some, sorry, and that idea of having the disability resource coordinators credentialed is growing throughout the entire disability employment initiative in different states throughout the country. So when change, you know, you want to focus on the individual potential, that we're starting to look at that a little bit more, taking advantage of Social Security Administration's work incentives. I talked about am I echoing to anybody else?
Yes, I am getting an echo feedback.
Yeah. It just started.
Okay.
Let's see. Hello? Oh, it's gone.
Much better.
Okay. So, and also Social Security has a their WIPA projects, which I'll touch on later. So now that we've started to evolve and change for people with disabilities who receive these benefits as it pertains to work, and we're starting all these different programs and having all these resources, you know, change is coming, and that's a good thing. So, all right, so what do we know? We know that disability benefits and work incentives are complex. We know that people take the easy way out, work under the limit. We also know that service providers are typically uneducated, uninformed on benefits and work incentives, and that beneficiaries as well as providers, there's a fear there of termination of benefits, and that's someone's livelihood, so that fear is there. So these are the things that we know. So now I'm going to try to give you a little bit of information about things you may not know. We have two Social Security disability programs. We have the Social Security Disability Insurance, aka SSDI, and we have Supplemental Security Income, aka SSI. I have some lists of things here that pertain to each one, which I feel kind of, if you have this information and you know this stuff, then you're able to, it's very tricky because someone says I have Social Security disability. Well, here's things that maybe you can ask a person if you don't know, so you can kind of determine which benefit they have. So for SSDI, one would have Medicare after 24 months of being on benefits. SSI is Medicaid. To be eligible for Social Security disability, you would have to have recent work, accrued credits of coverage, which you know obviously pay through work, and they're taken out of your earnings, and your benefit amount is going to be based on those contributions in your work history. And for SSI, this is a needs-based program. I kind of compare it to TANF in a way because there's a lot of similarities regarding eligibility. Oh, I'm vibrating. I hear it again. But SSI is for the age, blind, and disabled. Typically, there's no work history, or it was a very long time ago. And also the benefit amount is based on the federal benefit rate. Some states offer supplements for SSI, and for SSDI, resources do not count, so there's no limit on resources. And it's only earnings that impact Social Security disability. And for SSI, as most of you probably know, there is a resource limit. And with SSD, the earnings impact in the month that they are earned, and for SSI, they impact in the month that they are paid, and that's very important information, and we'll touch on that again. So that's a little bit about both to kind of help you determine and kind of sort out the difference between the two benefits. So now we'll talk a little bit about SSDI work incentives. These incentives are actually designed to allow a person to attempt work and continue to work and eventually become dependent from their benefits, and it kind of provides them a long-term support. I always, since I've been doing this, I have a lot of trouble with the difference between the work incentives with the two benefits, because the way that the work incentives for SSDI are set up, they're really set up for success. And I wish that this was, the programs had similar work incentives, because it really allows a person to transition and to, get there at a steady pace. So So what are they? Someone with SSDI should be eligible for a trial work period. And what that is that's 9 months within 5 years where there's no limit on earnings. They can earn $1 million, and each month for those 9 months, they will still get their benefit. And those do not have to be consecutive, just within 5 years. In order for somebody to determine whether or not they're using a trial work period month, they would need to, it would be when earnings exceed $810, and that's the trial work period level for 2016, and they tend to like go up a little bit each year. So if someone is earning more than $810 in a month, then they are they're going to be using those trial work months. On the 10th month starts their extended period of eligibility, and this is 3 years, 36 consecutive months, and it, like I said, begins right after the trial work period ends. And what happens here is we're now looking at SGA, which I don't know why I didn't put that amount there, but it's substantial gainful activity. It's for 2016, $1,130. So at that point, when we're in the EPE, it's whether or not you receive a benefit each month in that time is going to be based on whether or not you're working at SGA level. Your earnings, if they're above SGA, then you would not get a benefit. So the idea being is throughout that month or throughout that 3 years, if you're going along and you're earning and you're working and you're not getting a benefit, and a year and a half in you stop working, that next month that you do not earn over SGA, you're eligible for benefits at that point, and they pick right back up. After the 3 years goes into the expedited reinstatement period of time. That's 5 years, and it's a safety net for people who do lose their benefits because of work earning. So after that 3-year period, you're officially terminated, and I know that word is very scary, from benefits, but within the 5-year period of time after that, you can do an expedited application, and it has to be for the same disability that you originally applied, and you can kind of, it's an expedited process, so it doesn't take the 3,000 months to get your benefits like it did the first time. Here's a little timeline that kind of maybe shows it a little bit better. There's a 3-month grace period at the end of the trial work period, so that first month after the trial work period is completed that you earn over SGA would start your grace period. So in a sense, you have 9 months of, or you actually have 12 months of time where you can earn as much as you would like to, and you'll still get a benefit. So in looking at this, you have someone with SSDI has 9 years of protection, you know, and support behind them in their return to work. So, you know, that's why I think the SSDI work incentives are just great. Let's look at some work incentives that reduce wages. Impairment-related work expenses. I don't know if anyone out there knows what an IRWE is, but it is an expense that is directly related to enabling a person to work. It is related to the existing disability, and it is something that's paid for out of pocket. And typically, they want the expense something that has to be paid for in the month that they're working, and it must be reasonable. One of the resources that I've given you is at the end is a link to the Social Security's Red Book, and in that Red Book there is a list of possible things that you can use for an impairment-related work expense. It goes as far as, in my training, and I always use this example when I'm explaining this to somebody, is that if you are taking a medication that is covered with your health insurance, however it has a side effect that you get terrible headaches and you need to purchase an economy-size bottle of Excedrin migraine for every month, and it costs you $20 because that medication that you need originally that is covered is needed in order for you to work because you need it to maintain your, symptoms of your disability, that migraine medicine, that headache medication is something that you can use for a related work expense because it is directly related, because you have to take that medication and it has that side effect. So you can get pretty technical with those. So how does this help SSDI beneficiaries? Well, it can reduce gross wages to bring earnings below SGA. So you have Jim. He's earning $1,200 gross per month. He has $75 each month in approved airways, and so now he has $1,125 in countable wages. So what that does is that makes him fall below SGA, so he would be eligible for his cash benefit because it reduces his countable wages for what Social Security is going to look at. So those can be complex. You kind of have to dig for them. You might need to provide a lot of information to get them approved, but they can be very, very helpful. So SSI is also can also use these to assist them as well as a work incentive, and it can be used to reduce gross wages that they count when determining their monthly cash benefit. And I have some examples that will come up that we'll look at some calculations that will put some in there, so you'll see how that looks with an SSI calculation. Another one is subsidies and special conditions, and this is a little bit more uncommon, I think, to use when trying to reduce the wages to keep somebody under SGA, but I kind of look at it like the employer pays more in wages than what the person is doing, performing for work. That's an employer subsidy. An employer receives full value because an agency provides extra services to the employee, like maybe like a job coach. So the person is able to give them full value because they have someone there that's assisting them. So when that happens, then obviously you get the proof to Social Security, and there's different technical ways of how they determine what that amount is, like a value on that amount of work or time or value of services that's being performed, but it can be used to reduce gross wages for someone who is getting SSDI. It can be helped when they're doing the SGA determinations. Examples: sheltered employment, fewer or easier duties than non-disabled peers, receives help from other workers to perform work, and then government-sponsored job training, job coaching type situations. So another incentive for SSDI beneficiaries is pertaining to Medicare. There's continued coverage during trial work period, obviously, because they're still getting a benefit, and so their Medicare premium will continue to come out of their benefit. And for 93 months following the 9th month, they would be eligible for the hospital coverage, cost-free, and then they could continue their Part B, but would be subject to a premium payment. And we'll get into some things later that will show you that we can kind of go around that and maybe get them some coverage that's not going to cost them what they would have to pay for their Medicare premium. So I think I'll stop right this second. I don't know. All I see on my screen, because this is the first time I've presented on a webinar platform, so all I see on my screen is my presentation. So does anybody want to ask any questions this far about the Social Security disability benefits or work incentives, or any questions so far?
I haven't gotten any, but that might prompt someone. If you'd like to raise your hand, I can unmute you as well. Any hands?
No?
I haven't got anything yet, so I guess we can move on.
All right, let's move right along then. Okay, so SSI, work incentives. This is, like I stated, this is a very different program, and the work incentives are also very different. Excuse me. And how work impacts earnings impact their benefits. So first we have our general earned income or general income exclusion, and that is $20 of unearned or earned income excluded. So if somebody has unearned income that has SSI, obviously we know that counts against them in figuring out how much SSI they're getting. So $20 of that can be excluded right off the top. And then you have your earned income exclusion, which is $65, which will come off of countable earnings off of their earned income. We have the impairment related work expenses, and then we have the half earnings exclusion. So if they have an impairment related work expense, it's taken into consideration before that final number is cut in half, which would then determine the remaining amount for their countable earnings. Blind work expenses, they are counted after the half earnings exclusion. And then there's something called the Plan to Achieve Self-Support, a PASS, which I don't know if anyone's ever heard of before, but this is an SSI work incentive, and I don't really get into it too much on here because I have sat through 2-hour webinar presentations just on a PASS. So that's something I think that to get into it in the future, or you know, when it's in the red book, so you can get the basic information on PASS plans right in the red book. So something that comes in before the half earnings exclusion is something many people don't know about. It is a student earned income exclusion, and I think this is really great for individuals who are receiving SSI, and they're young, and they probably have been receiving SSI since they were a child, and then they transition into the adult benefits. But what happens here is they have to be under the age of 22, so once they turn 23, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of this, but it is for someone who is regularly attending school, high school, GED regular classes, college, etc. And what happens is that $1,700, $1,780 per month is up to that amount can be excluded from counting against them for their earnings, and that would be the $7,180 max. So you have someone that's going to school and they're working part-time and they're earning $500 a month. Because the limit is that $1,780, you can exclude that entire monthly earning from counting against them. So they would, in a sense, get their gross earnings, and they would continue to get their SSI because that income is excluded up to the $1,700, and then the max for the year. Once they hit that $7,000, if they do, then obviously, you know, they would be done with that work incentive. But I think this is great, and a lot of people don't know about this. So if you're working with anyone that is younger and they are attending some sort of a regular education, definitely look into taking advantage of this for them. Okay, so the federal benefit rate. This is an established rate. I'm sure many are familiar of established rate of pay for an SSI check allowed. Currently, the FBR is $733 a month for individuals and $1,100 a month for couples. Almost all states offer a state supplement. New York is definitely one of them, and it's currently $87 for individuals and $104 for couples. So you're probably looking at this like, oh, you know, now I know why someone I'm working with is getting $820 a month, because they're getting their federal benefit rate and they're getting their state supplement as well. So how is this rate determined? It's determined using many factors, and I put the link for SSA.gov to go right to the section of this site that can explain and list the many ways that they have to look at situations to factor in for somebody's benefits. But I put a couple on here just to give you a little bit of an idea. Someone's living situation, living in a household of another person means in a household you do not own and you are not paying fair share of expenses. So that would be, you know, maybe an adult living, a young adult living with a parent. They're getting their benefits, but they're not paying, you know, half of all the bills. This can reduce their benefit rate by like a third. So it explains, if you go to the website and look at this, the living in the household of another, it'll explain it in depth of what that means, but that's basically the idea of that. And then marital status is obviously one. Married couples that both receive SSI have a reduced benefit rate. So that's an example how marital status can affect the federal benefit rate for an individual or a couple. Definitely take advantage of SSA.gov in this section and many others because you can learn a lot. I know it's not the easiest to navigate, but definitely take a look at that. Okay, so what counts as income for when it comes to SSI? Anything received in cash or in kind used to meet basic needs of food, clothing, or shelter. And just to remind you, it counts in the month that the check is dated. Earned income, gross wages, tips, bonuses, etc., and unearned income, any and all income that is not earned, which is counted when it is actually received. So basically, an individual receiving SSI, anything they have coming in, earned, unearned, someone handing them $100 a month for food, you know, a friend, family, whatever, all of it, it all counts, unfortunately. So the SSI formula, so how does the Social Security Administration get to an adjusted cash benefit amount? And here's the fun part. This is what an SSI calculation sheet looks like. Okay, and it's kind of small on here, but I did provide a copy, and what we're going to do is we'll go through, let me check our time here. Okay, we're good. And I'll go through a couple of examples, and I'll show you how this works. Okay, let's see. Let me go here. Okay, oh, wait a minute. Let me go back here real quick. Okay, so this person, this beneficiary, has no unearned income, is working 25 hours a week. They are earning $10 per hour. They don't have any IRWIS pass, anything like that, and their benefit rate is obviously $733, and they get their state supplement. So that's the first example. Okay, so we said no unearned income, which means we wouldn't use that general exclusion here. Their gross earned income, and then we have nothing, no IDA contributions, so, okay. Now we're going to take our $20 off the top of that, and then our 65 off of that, and here's what we're left with. We said no related work expenses, so what we're going to do is we're going to divide that 990 by 2, and we get 495. So now here's the fun part. So we have, and all this obviously, okay. So they're getting 733. 495 is what SSA is going to count, and so their adjusted benefit is going to be 238. However, you're going to take their adjusted benefit and you're going to go all the way back to this right here, this $1,075 that they earned. Put that in there, and then if they had any of this stuff, you would put that back in there because we would have taken it out up top. And so this is what it looks like for them when they're working, kind of. So basically, yes, they're only getting $238 in an adjusted SSI payment. However, you're going to credit them that entire gross earnings for the month, and so rather than $733, they now have $1,313 versus the $733, a $580 difference. So, okay, so here's the details on that. $1,075 a month in gross earnings, $495 total countable earnings. Their adjusted payment is $238, and then their total financial outcome is $1,313, and the difference is $580. So they're better off $580 than they were with just their SSI. Okay. So for example 2, so this beneficiary has no unearned income, is working 20 hours a week, earning $9.50 an hour, and they have $40 in impairment-related work expenses, no other pass or anything, exclusions like that. Their benefit rate is obviously $733 a month. So, sorry, this is how I kind of had to do this to get it. Okay, so 817. And then we're going to take that $20 off. We're going to take the $65 off. And then, oops, they have a related work expense of $40. So we're going to take that off. And that remainder, after they cut that in half, is $346. So that's going to be their total countable earnings. Okay, so their $733 benefit rate, $346. I know this is so much fun. $387 is going to be their adjusted SSI payment. But again, you're going to take that $387. They have that original $817. And they saved that $40 for their related work expense. The difference is $1,244 on that one. So let's take a look at this one. Whoops. Okay. So $817 a month in gross earnings, $346 in total countable earnings. Adjusted payment is $387, and bringing their total financial outcome to $1,244 with a $511 difference. And all they're doing is working 20 hours per week at $9.50 an hour. One last one I wanted to show you, and this is one that's going to kind of bring them over a little bit. So let's look at this one. So this beneficiary has no unearned income. They're working 35 hours a week, $11 an hour, and their benefit rate is $733 a month. So no unearned income. Their gross is $1,655.50. And we are going to take that $20 off of there. We're going to take the $65 off of there. Nothing there. We will divide that by 2, $785.25 in countable earnings. So now you're looking at this and you're thinking, yeah, now they are not going to get a benefit. And you're right, because we would have 0 here. However, where they were getting $733 a month, they are now looking at $16.55 a month. So let's take a look at what that's going to look like. Okay, so this puts them at a zero adjusted payment, but they are $835.50 better off a month than they were just with their benefits. So those are three examples, and with different variations, just to kind of show you how Social Security comes to the adjusted payment amounts. Okay, so let's talk about health insurance a little bit for individuals who receive SSI. So when someone does go beyond, it has a situation like I just showed you in the last example, and they obviously are no longer receiving SSI, they may be eligible for what is Medicaid while working. It's 1619B. They would have had to have SSI for only 1 month. They need to be ineligible for cash payment due to earnings, still disabled, meet all other rules, including resources test. They need the Medicaid to work, and their gross earnings are insufficient to replace SSI and Medicaid. Because I know that's something that, we look at, and some of us are like, I make this amount of money and I can still barely afford to go on, and I don't know how someone working for lower wages losing their SSI and having to figure out health insurance. Well, the threshold for 1619B is $43,000, a little over a month. So this is a good program for somebody who is coming off of SSI benefits and where they're not receiving a payment and keeping some insurance for them. So I put the link on the bottom of this one so you can take a look at that and get more information on the 1619B. Other work incentives. I have gotten to know this one pretty well recently. This is the Medicaid buy-in program for working people with disabilities. I've also come to find out that my local office anyway is very unfamiliar with the details and how this works. So if you are going to help somebody go after Medicaid buy-in, you're probably going to need to know your stuff. You're going to have to do some legwork, and you're going to, it might be a little bit of a tedious process, but it's well worth it. So this is for people with disabilities working and are earning too much for regular Medicaid. So this can be SSDI and SSI. This is different from the 1619B. That's only for SSI. This is for either or. So they have to be at least 16 and have a disability defined by Social Security Administration. They need to be engaged in work. They need to have lost their benefits due to earnings from work. And their gross earnings can be as high as a little over $60,000. And how they come to this, they kind of use that calculation I just showed you. It's almost to exactly the same way. How they determine whether they're eligible for this program or not. I am working with someone right now, just as an example, and he receives SSDI. He was only receiving it for a year when he went back to work. So he is not receiving Medicare. So when he was just getting his benefits, he was eligible for Medicaid. Now he's working. So he is in his trial work period and getting his monthly benefit, which is, on the higher side, and he's also has his wages, his earnings that are counting against him. So when I did this whole calculation and presented this to the Medicaid examiner and the director of Medicaid, he is over literally like $138. Well, my friend, my client, he has a service animal, and so he has to buy food, he has to send he has vet bills, he sends this dog to like a daycare training twice a month. So he has related work expenses that we are now fighting for him to be able to use, which it is allowed and it's written there. They're just trying to determine whether or not, it is an official service animal. That's where we are right now. But if all this goes through, it's going to reduce his earnings enough that impairment-related work expense, making him eligible for the Medicaid buy-in program for working people with disabilities, so he can continue to work and he can continue to get his medications and see his therapist and everything that he needs to do. So this is awesome. So definitely hit that link. I took you, I think, right to the toolkit. Great read, great information. Definitely educate yourself on that one a little bit better. Next, this is really great as well. This is earned income disregard. Basically, if you are working with someone that receives Section 8 or supportive housing program, home, housing opportunities for people with AIDS, these are programs that would be possibly, someone in one of these programs would possibly be eligible to take advantage of this. It has to be a disabled family, someone in the house obviously disabled, increase in income from employment after being unemployed for a period of time. So what happens here is for the first year of earnings, 100% of your income is disregarded. So if you have someone that's has a Section 8 voucher and they have SSI and they are working, they go to work for that first year, they will not use any of their earnings to reduce how much they are paying for them in rent. And then the second year is 50% of income disregarded. This is an awesome program as well. And again, with meeting with locally for Section 8, it wasn't something, it's something they kind of knew about. It wasn't something that anybody, any recipients of the voucher or any service provider had ever come to them and said, well, what about this earned income disregard? When I came along and I started learning about these things, that's when I connected with them on this, and it works. I mean, I have 3 people right now that are taking advantage of this. So the link below is going to show you the PDF, and it's like pages of exactly what makes somebody eligible and how the whole thing works. So earned income disregard. Okay, I'll throw out any questions so far about anything I've gone over.
We did have a question from Angela. Angela, I have unmuted you, so if you'd like to ask your question aloud, you may.
Hi, I'm Mike Curran from the Kean Center in Peekskill, New York. I have a question about impairment-related work expense. I was wondering about transportation. Both people who qualify for paratransit but then might not be able to take paratransit and have to take a cab. So either expense for paratransit or transportation expense, their disability, because of their disability, they'd never be able to, say, drive a car or something like that. So they are dependent on some other means of transportation.
The answer is yeah. I mean, I'll say yes. I always say 99% because I never want to give anybody, you know, a full 100% on anything, just in case for some, you know, it goes out into the universe and for some, you know, circumstance around it. But if somebody cannot have a driver's license, cannot drive a vehicle due to their disability, and they are working, transportation is absolutely an impairment-related work expense.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And it explains, if you do look at the red book, it'll explain that a little bit better for you there.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Is that it?
That's it so far. I would encourage folks to raise your hand so we can call on you or ask a question in the box. And I actually just got a question about the PowerPoint, if it's available. It is available on the side panel. It says it's under handouts. There's 3 handouts, including the calculation sheet and the ticket to work stuff and the PowerPoint. So just make sure to check it out. I think that's it for now.
I must be doing a great job if I don't have any questions, because you know this information is, I know it's so complex and can be difficult to understand. So like, again, feel free. I mean, any questions. There are circumstances around an individual can be a little bit tricky for me to answer questions, but you know, feel free to throw them out there if you have them. So
Emily, this is Jill.
Yes.
I did have one question. Maybe you were going to cover it later, but will you be able to talk about where people in different parts of the state can access individualized support from local DEIs?
Yes, I'm going to share a link for that to get the
great.
Okay. Okay. Ticket to Work. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure, has heard of the Ticket to Work program. That's another thing actually I didn't even mention, that's what I do. We here at the Career Center, and all of the career centers that are involved in the Disability Employment Initiative are working under an administrative employment network called NIAS, and we can provide EN services to beneficiaries who want to assign their ticket for Ticket to Work. So Ticket to Work, established in 1999 through the Ticket to Work and Work Incentives Improvement Act. The idea is to expand employment support services and medical insurance, allowed states to establish Medicaid buy-in programs, and created opportunity for qualified entities to become employment networks, like I just mentioned. The Social Security Administration's Ticket to Work program is something, it supports career development for beneficiaries. The program is free and voluntary, and what it is, it's designed to assist beneficiaries to move in the direction of financial independence. So, you know, if you're working with individuals that, you know, probably will not be able to go past like working at a part-time level, they really don't need the Ticket to Work program, because the idea behind it, like I said, is to move them in the direction of financial independence. Key provisions: they must be receiving SSDI and or SSI. Beneficiaries through ages 18 through 64 are eligible. When you have your ticket assigned, you are protected from continuing disability reviews as long as you're making timely progress. Now, if somebody, what that is that periodically, if you don't know, Social Security will conduct a continuing disability review, not to be confused with a review of their work history and earnings throughout the time they're receiving benefits, but a continuing disability review to determine whether or not from time to time that they're still medically disabled. If there is one that they're getting ready to start, that is in process to start when their ticket is assigned, or if they want to assign their ticket in the middle of a continuing disability review, that kind of negates this. But if they don't have that going on, then for the period of time that their ticket is assigned and they're making timely progress, no, they won't review them to see if they're still disabled. So that's awesome right there, because sometimes they do it very frequently for many individuals, so that's a good thing. Services provided are through employment networks, and the services are things such as career counseling, job search assistance, ongoing supports after employment, and things like that. So one of the things that is not a requirement for an employment network, a service that they have to provide under Social Security's list of requirements, is benefits advisement. It is not required for an employment network to provide that service to them, which I personally think is absurd, because that should be the very first requirement for an employment network. What's nice is that a lot of them do, and for the Disability Employment Initiative here in New York State, all of the EN service providers, the career centers or whatever they're working under, they all have that service. So that's amazing. But it's not required for an employment network under Social Security's rules. So like I just said, every Social Security Administration beneficiary should receive benefits advisement when returning to work or attempting work for the first time. It doesn't matter what they, starting out, what they think they want to do, part-time, full-time, anything. Every single person should receive benefit advisement in some nature. Why? Why should they? Well, I'm going to tell you. Knowledge is power. The more knowledge an individual has, or even the service providers and family supporting them about how work is going to impact their benefits, the better off they're going to be, and the less likely that mistakes are going to happen and overpayment situations are going to happen, things like that. Most beneficiaries are unaware of how work impacts their benefits, their health insurance, etc. They're advised improperly, or just are led to believe that if they earn more than a certain amount of money, that famous only work 20 hours a week will cause them to lose their benefits. And then education on work incentives and impacts on earnings, etc. It allows an individual to make sound decisions regarding their employment goals. It gives them the information they need to make a good decision, not just the decision that, you know, they're guided by, you know, everybody not knowing or just being fearful of what's going to happen if they go to work, but giving them the information that they need so they can decide what they want their future and employment to look like. So I have a little case study here that I kind of want to share, and it's going to kind of show you someone not receiving benefits advisement, going through this process, and then a different scenario where they are receiving benefits advisement. So we have Mark. Mark is working with Access VR, seeking part-time work. He is looking at food service occupations. Mark receives Social Security disability, and he has for the past few years. He gets $902 each month in benefits. He has previously worked in several restaurants doing food prep and other kitchen duties, and he did this for many years. And he kind of has it in his mind, in his head, that he would like to work as a cook eventually. He'd like to take that a step further. So here's what this looks like with no advisement. So through his services through VR, he gets a part-time job. He's going to work 20 hours a week at $10 an hour. Now the employer originally said to Mark that they had a position available working 29 hours at the same rate of pay. In order for him to take advantage of any promotional opportunities, this would be the position he would need to work. He would need to work more hours, the 29 hours a week, in order to take advantage of future opportunities. So upon advice from his service provider, he declined that position to make sure that his SSDI benefits stayed intact and he did not lose those benefits. And so, you know, he declined. So he will receive $860 a month in gross earnings. And when you look at how much he gets for his benefits each month, he'll earn $1762 a month, and that's what Mark's going to do. Case closed. He's going to work in this restaurant 20 hours a week for $10 an hour and continue to get his benefits. So let's take a look at this with advisement. All right, so consider the same scenario. However, at the beginning of working with Access VR, Mark is also working with someone that is certified in benefits advisement. So he's got this person helping him through the entire process. So now he's aware of many of the work incentives available. He knows about a trial work period. He knows about, you know, all these things that he can take advantage of. And he discusses with his benefits advisor the options of working more hours and what does that look like for him. So Mark has been paying out of pocket for some of his medical expenses, and it is determined that he has $125 a month in impairment-related work expenses. So Mark ends up taking the position for 29 hours a week, and how can he do this? So Mark has approximately $1,247 in gross earnings, putting him over SGA. However, because he has that $125 a month in impairment-related work expenses, it reduces his countable earnings to $1,122. Mark will continue to receive his benefits along with his earnings from work. So now, from I think we had $1,762, he's up to $2,149 a month, and he's working 30 hours, 29 hours a week. So, you know, he takes a job with more hours, and this is kind of the result of that. So now he continues to work, same scenario, for 6 months. He's managing those hours well. He's able to work 30 hours a week. Everything's conducive to, you know, disability symptoms and you know, all of that stuff. So then he's offered a position that is 40 hours a week at $16 per hour. Mark knows he can work these hours, and this is I didn't put it in here, but this is a cook position. This is what he wanted to do. He's a little unsure about his benefits and his health insurance, and what if he's unsuccessful and he loses his employment due to his disability. We always want to make sure we say, due to my disability, I am no longer able to work. So let's take a look at what this looks like for him. So Mark will have approximately $2,752 in gross monthly earnings. So for he did the other position for about 6 months. So he has about 3 months left of his trial work period, plus he has his 3-month grace period. So in this time, he will continue to receive his SSDI benefits. Okay, so that's 6 more months, earnings, 40 hours a week, at making this money plus getting his $902. So just to kind of throw that in here, at this point in time, what I would do is say, okay, we have extra money coming in. We have that $902. What are we going to do with that? Let's pretend it's not there. That extra money, let's pretend it doesn't exist and figure out a way to make it beneficial for your future. Just throwing it in there. That's what I would do with my customer. So then he goes into his extended period of eligibility, which is 3 years, and he can continue to receive benefits if he's unsuccessful. So he gets in a year and a half into his EPE, and he just, something happens due to his disability and he is unable to work. That first month he works under SGA, he'll be able to pick right back up where he left off. Keep in mind, and I didn't mention this before, with both each SSDI and SSI benefits, okay, so just because they stopped, say, okay, October, they didn't have any earnings at all, like that put, for SSI they stopped working, or for SSD they didn't have earnings over SGA, so they were eligible for more money, or for SSI, or eligible for their SSDI check. That doesn't kick in for a couple months. So we always want to make sure that when we're talking with individuals, and part of the thing with them going to work is letting them know and making them understand that we can't just stop working. This is what's going to happen. So we got to kind of prepare for that and plan for that, because we all know that can happen. So as far as his insurance, Mark can apply for the Medicaid buy-in program, and that's what takes care of that. So did Mark make a good decision? I think Mark did. I think he made a really good decision. I hope everybody would agree, because now he's earning a lot more money. He doesn't have that, just have to be relying on that $900 a month anymore, and he's doing what he wanted to do, and he's successful, and he has protection if he's unsuccessful. So I just wanted to share that little case study. Excuse me. So and here's where I wanted to kind of end my presentation for you all, and say expect more. Yesterday, in fact, I sat down with somebody, and she receives SSI. She came in with her Medicaid service coordinator, which I'm sure I have MSCs on the line right now and listening to this. She wanted, she was interested in work, part-time, something to do. And as I began talking to her, we kind of talked about, excuse me, I just took a sip of water and it went down the wrong pipe. We started getting into a little bit more like, well, what are your interests? What do you want to do? I mean, why do you only want to work part-time? Do you, are you fearful of losing your benefits, and what happens, and all these other things, and we kind of got talking about, do you have a high school diploma or a GED? And she said that she has an IEP diploma, which I'm sure most people on the call are aware that this is a huge barrier for somebody, because it doesn't really count as, it's not equal to a GED, or prevents them from going to college and taking any college courses. But she had said, well, I don't think, she said she needed to get her GED in order, she wanted to do some sort of college, but she had to do her GED. And she said, I don't think I can do it. I didn't do really well in school. I had a hard time. And she had a principal, she wanted to do cosmetology. She's 26. She had a principal that she had some learning disabilities and stuff like that that prevented her from really being successful at school. But she had a principal that told her when she wanted to do cosmetology that she wasn't going to be able to do that, because she was, I can't even repeat what he told her. It was not a very nice thing to say to somebody, and basically that it was worse than telling her she was too stupid. It was a lot worse than that. So, you know, now this girl has gone through her life, you know, thinking that she couldn't do it. She's not capable. She says she has, you know, support family around her that tell her she's not going to be able to work a full-time job, or she's not smart enough to get her GED or go to college. And so, you know what, I said, I've sat with you for 45 minutes now. I don't know you very well. I don't know if you're capable. I said, but the only way that you're really going to know is if you try, and you know, it's not going to affect your benefits if you go try to work on getting your GED. And you know, you want something to do. You want something to occupy your time. You want to be able to. She wanted to be off benefits in her future. She wanted to be able to take care of herself. So, you know, after this conversation, these things here that, you know, I wanted to let you know, it really means a little bit more now that I've had that conversation with her, because I feel like she left me with, you know, a little bit of a, you know, sparkle in her eye, a little bit more to look forward to, and you know, maybe she can, maybe she can't, but at least, you know, she knows that she absolutely can try to see what she can do. So expect more. Raise expectations of clients, service providers, employers. This results in change, along with the knowledge of SSA work incentive. Providers are the catalyst for change. We are the ones that work with these people every single day, and, you know, we need to be able to raise the bar for them and expect more of them, and they may be able to do more than what we are putting out to them through fear of losing their benefits, their livelihood. And just ask yourself, could they achieve more with the right information? With all this information that I've given you, and all these different incentives that they may or may not be able to take advantage of, could they achieve more than what they are doing right now? And I am aware that there are many people that may not be able to, but there are a lot of people that can. And I think that with, you know, with all of this knowledge of how this stuff works, I think we can eliminate that fear and help a lot of people take it to the next level, and maybe hopefully get off of benefits and take care of themselves and be self-sufficient. So, with that being said, I dug deep into my thoughts of what all the resources and stuff that I've used and taken advantage of, and here they are. ChooseWork.net, ChooseWork.net, TicketToWork.net. This is like an amazing website for people, service providers, beneficiaries. I thought I pulled the tab up. I'll look in a minute because I kind of wanted to show you that a little bit, but I don't know if we're going to have time. But navigate through that. It's got like questionnaires on there, like you can sit with somebody and answer questions that'll kind of direct them, you know, do part-time work, full-time work, interests. Like, it's great. It's got a lot of valuable information. It also can connect you with employment networks, which should then lead to benefits advisement. The second one is the DEI DRC contact charts. So what this is that you should be able to find, if you navigate through that, under the New York State section, all of the sites in New York State that have a disability resource coordinator with their contact information. I also put on there the SSA.gov Redbook link. Please read this. It's amazing. Call them and ask them to mail you a hard copy, because I always like mine in a hard copy. So they'll send you one. It's got a lot of good information. All of the stuff that we went over today, it has it in there, and it's not complicated. They don't make it complicated for you to understand. It's very simple to understand. And then SSA.gov, it's there. You can type in the search, and it'll bring a lot of stuff up for you if you have questions about impairment-related work expenses, SSI calculations. I mean, any of the things that you have questions on, the work incentives, you know, all of that stuff. It's there. You just, you know, it's in the SSA.gov website. It's like a huge bank of information, as well as the other links that I provided on the slide. So that's pretty much all I have for today. This is my contact information. If you have any questions and you want to shoot me an email, feel free. The next webinar that would be the same information as I covered today is October 26th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And now if we want to open it up for any questions, Nicole, if you want to.
Yes, I already have. Oh, a couple are coming in. First question's from Marta Rieger. I'm going to read your question out loud, and I'm also going to unmute you, Marta, if you have any clarification or just to make sure your question is answered. But she asked, what happens after end of EPE? If the person loses their job, what happens to Medicaid buy-in at the end of EPE?
So if for someone with SSDI who ends their 3 years of extended period of eligibility, what happens that their benefits are officially terminated, okay? But for 5 years after that, they are eligible for what's called an expedited reinstatement. So what happens is they fill out this application, they can get up to 6 months of provisional payments, okay? So they're going to receive a benefit while Social Security is making a determination. And obviously they're going to move quickly because they don't want to pay it. These payments that they're giving this beneficiary they don't have to pay them back if it, for whatever reason, was determined that they are no longer disabled, okay, for this medically disabled. But they'll do it quickly. It's an expedited process. You don't have to go through the application all over again. And it's the only thing about it is that they have to, it has to be for the same disability, so that they were originally receiving benefits for. And that's what happens after that. And the Medicaid buy-in, it's for that. After the extended period of eligibility, you know, and from after the trial work period beyond, as long as their earnings are under, you know, the $60,000 or whatever it is a month, and that information is all in that toolkit that I provided the link to, then they should be able to take those benefits on. And if they're earning a lot of money where, you know, at the level of where others are, that we are paying health insurance through our employer and things like that, then they're successful. That's great. You know what I mean? They're beyond that. But for 5 years after the extended period of eligibility, they're should be eligible for the expedited reinstatement. Did that answer your question?
Marta, I have unmuted you if you'd like to respond. Hello?
Maybe she doesn't have a microphone. Sometimes I don't have my microphone headset handy, so I just use my earbuds.
No problem.
Okay, well, I hope that answered your question.
Oh, she responded. OMH training in February 2016 on SSA issues and work contained an item on SGA that stated, in quotes, earnings between $300 to $1,130 may be deemed as SGA if the performance of the worker with a disability is equivalent to that of a non-disabled worker in a comparable situation. Haven't been able to find other source documentation for this. Marta says her microphone's not working.
Okay. I'm trying to kind of figure out what you're talking about. What it sounds like to me is that's something that they use when they're making eligibility decisions. So like that more or less applies. I believe, if I'm getting your question correctly, at the application process. So like if somebody applies for Social Security disability, okay, they would have had to have earned under SGA for a period of 12 months until they wouldn't be eligible. So if you're working and you stop work, you get hurt, you know, work or not work, like let's not even bring workers' comp into the situation because I can't even go there. That's for a whole nother week. We'd have to take a week on that. But if they got hurt or somebody became disabled, they can't work, they're making $60,000 a year, they would have to wait a whole year to be eligible because they were earning over $1,130 a month. So that little provision in there is, I think that like a line in that statement is what I think you're talking about. Basically, like they're looking at the work that you're doing. So it kind of goes hand in hand. So like it's a physical disability and you're doing, you hurt your back, you're only making, you're making under a little under SGA, but you're lifting 100-pound cement blocks. I mean, that's kind of what I'm, if I'm correct in what you're asking me and what you're referring to, that's what I think that means. Does that answer your question?
Can wait for her to respond. Someone else asked me if the presentation is going to be recorded. The presentation, yes, is being recorded because they said they want to have all their employment staff watch it. So, thanks. And Marta says yes. She said, okay, thank you.
I believe that is what you're talking about in the original in the application process. So I hope that I got that correct. So thanks for the question.
Thank you. No problem. I just want to also invite any additional audience and attendees to raise their hand. I can unmute you. You can ask your question aloud or continue to type in the questions box. I haven't gotten anything yet. Additionally.
Wow. I think everybody, well, when I sat here, I was thinking earlier, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I gotta figure out like lunchtime. I'm like, oh wait, I can't sit and eat my lunch because I'm not listening, I'm presenting, so that would be rude. But yeah, I mean, if there's no further questions, I mean, it's a little early, but I can, did I bring it up?
If people think of additional questions, this is Jill. You can write to me or Nicole. I'm Jill at nyrehab.org. Nicole is Nicole at nyrehab.org. And Emily, how are you feeling about having people contacting you directly with particular questions?
Oh,
or would you like us to filter them? That's fine.
No, yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
My email's on there. And I also, I did have it pulled up. This is the Choose Work site that I was talking about. So I did have it up there. So there's so many things, like you can go through right here. If you want to search for employment networks, you just put your zip code in and your state, and you start your search, and it'll list a bunch of employment networks and contacts for you to find help with work. Also, I didn't mention, if you have anybody that's working with Access VR, they have vendors that they can contact and contract out to provide benefits advisement for these individuals. So make sure if you have somebody that you're working with and they are receiving services through Access VR and they are a beneficiary, that you are, if you're advocating for them or they're going on their own, make sure that they ask for that service, because it should be something that they are able to provide. Okay, so I forgot, I just wanted to throw that in there too. But this site is great. This has got, success stories, it's got webinars, it's got, everything you need to know as a service provider, and you can also navigate through for beneficiaries and get them on there and show them things that they might be able to take advantage of to help them figure out what they want to do as far as work. So this is that site. It's great. So.
Awesome. I have a clarification question from Marta. She just made a statement. It was not clear from the training, but seemed to indicate an increased assessment of SGA.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what I think that is. I think it's definitely having to do with, the work that you're doing. Maybe they're not, making as much money as they should, but if they have a back disability that they're trying to get SSD for and they're lifting 100-pound cement blocks, making $1,000 a month, they're probably not going to, they're going to determine they're ineligible. I think that's what it is. So, but yeah, that's it.